In this episode of The Wildlife Man, we will dive inside an ancient volcano and explore the undersea world of the Great Barrier Reef. Imagine thousands of years ago the pressure building up in the Earth's crust, and a volcano pushes its way up from the depths through the surface of the ocean, and then it blows itself to pieces. That's what we've got here, the remnants of an ancient volcano. A place in New Zealand which is washed by tropical warm currents from the north and cold currents from the south, where you get this huge diversity of animals not found anywhere else on the planet. And that's where we're going to dive, right here, the Poor Knights in New Zealand. In this ancient volcano, there are pockets of gas that just explode and blew holes in the side of the volcano. And that's why you get these huge caves. In fact, this cave is one of the biggest caves in the whole southern hemisphere where you can actually take a boat inside. And that's what we're going to do. Not many places in the world can you take a boat inside a volcano. What makes this place so special is that the caves and archways we are experiencing are also found underwater. I can't wait to film the creatures of the deep here. We will need powerful lights to explore these dark undersea canyons. I jump in with my heavy camera and lights and immediately wish I'd packed a dry suit. The 14-degree water temperature stuns my senses. But I'm soon distracted. Something big is moving in the kelp below me. It's a 4-metre-long eagle ray. The ray's fins allow her to fly over the kelp like a giant black bird. We swim into a huge canyon. Schools of Mao Mao hover in the half-light. Deeper inside, my lights illuminate the plankton, the food source of countless marine animals. Exotic long-nosed boarfish and boldly striped wrasse thrive within the caves of this ancient volcano. The poorly named pigfish rivals the striking colours of the sponges with its crimson red scales. while waiting patiently on the volcanic rocks is the highly venomous scorpionfish. He will ambush anything that he can fit in his huge mouth. This undersea canyon supports an abundance of living, breathing life. The sponges, anemones and soft corals compete for space and decorate the sheer walls of the cave in brilliant colours. Then we discover a spectacular animal that Mother Nature has painted in the most striking patterns. It is a nudibranch, or shellless mollusk. These beautiful creatures feed on stinging anemones. Their poisonous diet makes their flesh toxic to predators. Nudibranchs are hermaphrodites. They are both male and female. This allows them to mate with any nudibranch of the same species they meet. It's time to travel back to the coast and do some crayfishing. In New Zealand, it is legal to get a feed of crayfish on scuba. Sadly, that's our last dive off the Poor Knights Divers boat. But what a great way to finish our adventure in New Zealand with a wonderful feed of crayfish. Tomorrow, we are off to the Great Barrier Reef. To encounter more creatures of the deep, we travel to Lady Elliot Island, perched right on the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. The surrounding coral reefs are home to a huge diversity of corals and marine life. Oh, something very special. A wonderful way to learn about the marine environment of the Great Barrier Reef is to do a bit of beach combing. Now this little spiky fella is a pufferfish. These creatures are quite amazing because what happens when a predator comes down to try and feed on one, they blow themselves up like a balloon. They fill themselves up with water. As they inflate, these sharp spines become erect and of course they're very sharp. No fish wants to try and eat something like a pufferfish. Big storm, ocean waves have driven this little guy up onto the beach like a bouncing ball. The sun has mummified him and there he is, the remains of a pufferfish. Eating pufferfish can be fatal as they contain toxins deadly to humans. Handling these inflatable fish is also dangerous. The fused teeth can literally chop divers' fingers off, and the erect spines can easily penetrate rubber gloves. Within the coral rock are many fossils. Corals often break away from the reef and wash up on the beach. The sun bleaches them snow white. Now this is a fine specimen of staghorn coral. It's actually the skeleton of dead coral that's been washed up in a storm. Staghorn coral gets its name from the way it looks. It's the same shape, same form as the horns on a stag. The interesting thing about staghorn coral, it's one of the fastest growing corals and it covers huge areas of the Great Barrier Reef. I like to swim over it with my camera and my lights blazing. And as we swim over the top of the coral, we must look like sharks because lots of little tiny fish, little green chroma and damsels and humbugs, they all disappear into the coral as quickly as they can. And as we swim over the top with our lights, you can see them all looking up, wondering if we can get inside there to get them. That's an interesting thing. Now this is a dead cone shell. There's no animal inside. It's died and washed up here into the coral rock and rubble here. You can see it's a cone shell by the shape. These are one of the more deadly creatures of the Great Barrier Reef, and we often film them in the sand. These animals are hunters. From the small end comes a very deadly barb. That barb has venom that is so toxic it can even cause fatalities in people. So if somebody, a diver, decides to steal one of these cone shells and picks it up and puts it inside their wetsuit, whack, that harpoon comes out and we have one dead thief or one dead diver. So better leave the shellfish, especially cone shells, alone. Don't pick them up because these guys are deadly. They mostly use the harpoon, of course, by injecting venom into prey like fish. This one's a dead one, but we'll leave it in the rubble with everything else. Some areas of the Great Barrier Reef have been devastated by the crown of thorns sea star. I'm keen to know if the reefs around Lady Elliot have suffered the same fate. I asked Alexia Jankowski. She runs the daily snorkelling adventures for the tourists. Have you seen many of the crown of thorns?
In my time diving here, I've only seen 2, so not too many at all, no.
Is it true that if you pull the legs off a crown of thorns, you get another one grows?
That's right, yes. So they can actually split and form into two different animals.
So if you split it up, or tear it in half, or tear it into 5 pieces, you get 5?
That's right, yep. 5 different ones.
Tell me what you know about coral polyps.
Well, the polyp is basically a little jellyfish-like animal, and it grows in colonies, and it basically forms the coral reef. So the hard corals that we see here at Lady Elliot Island, basically the polyp has excreted calcium carbonate, and that's what has built up the skeleton and made the coral.
So what we're seeing here at Lady Elliot is really just a thin veneer of life that's growing on the carcasses or skeletons of countless generations of coral.
Yeah, that's right.
Crown of thorns sea stars sometimes reach plague proportions and devastate reefs. Thankfully here at Lady Elliot, the coral predators are not a problem, and we can look forward to pristine coral diving. Before we dive any location, we always seek local information and advice. Our skipper, Michael Baird, warns us about a potential problem we may encounter with our heavy equipment.
When we're diving out here, especially with these outer bommies and the tides we got this time of year, you're going to get a lot of strong currents coming along there.
So we're drifting from one bommy to the next?
Yeah, it's pretty much what we're going to do is drift diving.
Thanks, mate. I've spent most of my life filming marine animals. But even after all this time, the undersea world delights my senses. These protected reefs support healthy populations of turtles. I decide to follow a young one as he glides over the reef. Eventually, he ascends back to the surface to gulp a fresh breath of air. I find another green turtle resting in a cave. But there is also a dangerous shark here. Its blotchy patterned hide allows it to camouflage itself on the cave floor. It's a tasseled wobbegong, the first I have ever filmed. Years ago, I hand-fed its cousin, the spotted wobbegong, and recorded the lightning-fast snapping jaws. Wobbegongs may well be the fastest ambushing sharks of our oceans. This tasseled wobbegong will wait for a fish to come within range, and in a flash, it will be inside its tummy. There is another shark here too. It's a tawny nurse shark. It doesn't need to swim to oxygenate its gills. It can pump water and breathe while resting. It may have tiny eyes and poor eyesight, but it is still a highly tuned predator of crayfish and octopus. The juvenile turtle leaves the cave. I join a mature green turtle, travelling with a strong current. This huge male is on a mission, and as long as my air lasts, I will follow him. Green turtles are massive, some weigh over 300 kilograms, and migrate great distances to feed and mate. Sadly, some are drowned in fishing nets, while others choke on plastic, mistaking the clear material for jellyfish. This one, however, looks healthy. But where is he going? We travel further and further out to sea. And then my curiosity is rewarded. He joins numerous females resting in the coral rubble. This is an undersea lover's lane. One female seems intrigued with my lights. She poses for my camera. This is one of those special moments. Throughout the tropics, countless numbers of turtle eggs are stolen from nests for food. Turtles are hunted for meat, and even their shells are sold to tourists. Thankfully, the females here will lay their eggs on Lady Elliot Island. If turtles were protected worldwide, like they are in Australia, the decline in their numbers could be reversed. The sunsets here are breathtaking. In the fading light, thousands of feeding terns return to the island to rest. The next day, a sea of diamonds promises more encounters with the creatures of the deep. During the production of our Wildlife Man series, we've encountered many wonderful species of reptiles, especially snakes. like the reticulated pythons in East Timor. Huge animals that can snap the neck of a man like a twig and have jaws like a small crocodile. We've encountered the beautiful pythons of outback Australia. And also the deadly snakes, like the evil-looking tiger snake. But out here on the Great Barrier Reef lives a snake that is many times more toxic than any snake we have ever encountered. So today we go in search of the marine snakes. We've been told that sea snakes have come into the inshore reefs to feed, but how they will react to my 250-watt filming lights is unknown. This strange snake-like creature is only a harmless marine worm. These soft-bodied animals filter the coral rubble, much like an earthworm does in our garden. This tiny pufferfish is far more toxic than cyanide. Cute to film, but fatal to eat. Butterfly fish have striking patterns of black, yellow and even blue, similar to the wings on a butterfly. Coral trout are aggressive predators of small fish. However, why this one allows a yellow flutefish to ride the pressure wave over its back is a complete mystery. The Great Barrier Reef corals shelter some exceptionally clever predators. Like this giant moray eel, this monster is unusually territorial. Two years ago, I hand-fed a giant leopard eel in the Indian Ocean. It had no problem tearing a fish in half in a single bite. But this eel has now accepted my rude closeness. She is happy to allow a cleaner shrimp to rid her mouth of annoying parasites. The shrimp could not be in a safer place. No fish will try and prey upon a shrimp cleaning inside the jaws of death. On the sand bed, I encounter slow-moving creatures that filter the sand for food. They may seem a boring animal to divers, but recently scientists have discovered that genes from the sea cucumber could control malaria in mosquitoes and potentially save millions of human lives. The ultimate secret to mankind's survival may well depend on our ability to protect coral reefs. I follow an olive sea snake. Its paddle-shaped tail allows this marine reptile to swim with ease. These snakes hunt fish and paralyse them with the most potent venom known in the animal kingdom. Handling these snakes requires extreme caution. The mouth can open wide enough to allow the frontal fangs to deliver fatal bites to divers. Olive sea snakes shed their scales like terrestrial snakes and also use their forked tongue to smell prey. While underwater, they shut special valves to stop water pouring into their nostrils. And amazingly, they can hold their breath for over an hour. Eventually, however, they must return to the surface for a fresh breath of air. I'm fascinated by these incredibly venomous snakes. My gentleness is rewarded by non-aggression. But I must remind myself, this creature has a potential to take my life in a single bite. Olive sea snakes seldom attack divers, but will bite if they feel threatened. It is better to just let them be. Tomorrow we will search for undersea giants. I spend time again with our skipper Michael. He knows where we can find the giant gropers of Lady Elliot. Now you've got some big cod here, some giant fish.
Mate, we've got some huge cod out here.
So where's the best place for us to see them?
Best spot, probably the Severance, one of our favourite spots, yeah.
Now that's a shipwreck,
That is
isn't
a little shipwreck, yeah.
What depth is that?
It sits at about 22 metres of water.
22.
Yeah.
And is the current strong there as well?
We get some strong currents out there, and quite often if there's strong currents, you'll see them sitting behind the lee of the boat.
So they sit behind the shipwreck?
That's right, yeah.
And they're ambushing fish as they come past?
Ambushing their prey as they come past in the current, yeah.
What's the chance of us getting nice and close with a camera?
We can probably get down there, initially sort of get up nice and close. If we hang around too long, mate, the big guy sort of gets a bit angry.
Yeah.
Likes to retreat back into the ship.
We might go there today and see if we can film one of these giant groper.
Sounds good, mate. Sounds good.
Before the lighthouse was built on the island and ships were fitted with radar, numerous ships smashed into the coral reef. But their rusting hulks make wonderful habitats for marine life, especially the giant groper we seek. Today, the ocean is rich in plankton and visibility is greatly reduced. In the dim light, the wreck below looks like a ghost ship. Many old sailing ships have had their hulls torn open on the Great Barrier Reef. But where once there was terror and drowning men, now life survives in abundance. The ship's railings are draped in clusters of sponges, while magnificent soft corals adorn the ship's decks. I'm amazed how the ship's hull is now a brilliant blue. It is covered in encrusting sponges. Sheltering in the rigging and under the bow is a school of sweetlip. They seem strangely very nervous. There must be a predator close by that worries them. Out on the sand, we find our giant groper. Just as Michael predicted, it is huge. To make it hard to see, it has turned itself into the ship's ghost. It perfectly matches the white sand. It warns me to stay away by erecting its dorsal spines. It then retreats to the wreck. Following this monster fish inside the wreck is not without risk. This massive fish can become territorial. I am invading its lair. Its cavernous mouth could easily take my head and shoulders in a lunging gulp. It's time to leave. The wreck is now engulfed in hundreds of big-eye trevally. My cameraman Mark Mountain can hardly see my filming lights through the school. I follow the swirling mass of silverfish into the strong current. Some trevally stop to be cleaned of parasites by cleaner wrasse. This is a dangerous luxury. A 2-metre-long barracuda will readily prey upon fish occupied in a cleaning station. A spotted leopard shark surprisingly swims up and inspects my camera. And then another giant groper joins me. I managed to sandwich the cod between Mark and myself. Our lights clearly show this species is covered in tiny spots. He allows me ever so close. When I reach out to touch him, he swims off. giant groper are creatures of ambush. They literally suck prey into the gaping mouth. They are hermaphrodites, being able to change sex. Their wide tails allow the huge fish to swim against the strongest current. These are intelligent fish that use their keen eyesight and awesome sense of smell to hunt everything from crayfish to small sharks. Although being apex predators, their habit of establishing a territory makes their predictable behaviour an easy target for fishermen. Hiding in a cave is a monster groper. I edge closer with the utmost caution. He opens his mouth to show his weapons. I managed to film inside the huge jaws and record rows of teeth and gill rakers, a sight only seen for a split second by the prey that are swallowed by this enormous fish. Tomorrow we will carry out a dangerous experiment with yet another huge creature of the deep. 5 years ago, in water not much deeper than I'm standing in now, we were doing some experiments with the bull stingrays of southern New South Wales. To make them strike, I was literally pushing them up into the very shallow water. When the animal felt threatened, it'd bring its tail with those lethal barbs up over its back. I found if I stayed in front of the creature that I was out of the strike zone. So we learned a lot about the bull stingrays back then. But now we're here on the Great Barrier Reef, we want to carry out another experiment. When divers come close to the bull rays up here in the tropics, they explode out of the sand and take off. We want to record in high-speed film if, when they explode, they bring those lethal barbs up at the same time. So it's going to be a very interesting experiment. When it explodes off the sand, if you stay back a bit, you'll get a really wide shot. I have to brief Mark carefully. Working within the comfort and strike zone of stingrays will require extreme caution. Our first encounter is with a shovel-nosed shark ray, a harmless fish to divers. Shovel-nosed rays do not have the lethal barbed tail of stingrays. They may rely on looking like a dangerous shark to avoid being attacked by predators. Then we enter the feeding grounds of the stingray. I'm keen to film how often stingrays use their barbed tail when approached by divers. Stingrays have one or two serrated spines or barbs covered in a sheath. Toxic venom is also used to further enhance a lethal puncture. Being barbed Once the spine is torn from the wound, hemorrhaging is greatly increased. Again and again we crowd the rays, and each time they explode from the sand. Stingrays use electroreception and their strong sense of smell to locate mollusks, crustaceans and fish on the seabed. They seem to prefer to flee rather than fight. They can strike both upwards like a scorpion and sideways. Stingrays are propelled by wing-like petrel fins. The mucus that coats their skin allows these giants to slip through the water with a minimum of drag. Our numerous encounters, however, seem to prove that stingrays only bring the barbed tail into action when they perceive a threat. If divers keep their distance and never swim over the backs of a ray, these potentially dangerous creatures are not a problem. Out off the back of the reef, where the male humpbacks compete for females, 2 huge stingrays have been sighted patrolling the steep wall that drops into the abyss. One of these massive rays is jet black, and the other is apparently white. Like Captain Ahab with his lust to find Moby Dick the white whale, I am equally determined to encounter the legend white stingray of Lady Elliot Island. We descend to the reef flat and experience the Great Barrier Reef at its finest. Lady Elliot Island is thankfully far off the coast and is not affected by the runoff of detergents, fertilisers and sewage from the mainland. Hard corals have colonies of polyps that need unpolluted ocean currents to survive. I swim into the blackness of a cave. Here my lights shine on barramundi and coral cod. Descending deeper, I encounter huge fans of red Gorgonian coral. And a garden of soft corals that resemble Japanese bonsai trees. But there is no sign of the legend white stingray. I descend deeper. And before me is the most beautiful purple Gorgonian coral I have ever filmed. 40 metres, yet another cave is found. And resting inside is a loggerhead turtle. His eyes seem to reflect the sadness that faces his endangered species. The old turtle shares his cave with an inquisitive angelfish. Then something huge swims past the cave's entrance. It is a massive black stingray. He holds his barbed tail high in warning as I follow him down. Deeper and deeper we glide. Maybe he is the black monster that travels with the legendary white ray. But now my computer gauge is warning I am too deep. I may be risking the dreaded bends if I stay here any longer. But then something is coming up from the depths towards me. It's her, the legendary white stingray. Her belly is snow white and her wide back is covered in white blotches. For a fish, she is quite intelligent. The ratio of her brain weight to body weight is higher than most sharks. She is around 200 kilograms in weight and may grow to over 300 kilograms and live 30 years or more. Her coloration is extremely rare, but hopefully she will pass on her genes to her live-born pups. She is magnificent, a wonderful example of the incredible diversity of creatures that survive in the deep.